So my name is Rory Daly and I'm Head of Careers in the Management School, and I'll be delivering this workshop today. So thank you very much for all the people who filled in those really helpful ideas about why they wanted to improve their LinkedIn connection today. So there were some really helpful ones such as getting a job, employability, so I can be found by recruiters, to support a placement year, improve higher employability, to make connections, etc. So we hope over the course of the next 3 sets of workshops to be able to help you to develop those skills. So today's session is part of our LinkedIn Academy, and it's LinkedIn Academy 1. So we'll help you today with the very basics of developing your online presence using LinkedIn. It's obviously a form of social media. You'll all be using social media of one shape or another already, but it is different to other forms of social media in the sense that the vast majority of people who are using LinkedIn are using it for one of the reasons you've just outlined on the chat. So unlike Facebook, unlike Twitter, unlike Instagram, even though companies will use all of those sites to promote their activities, to promote their opportunities, they're not really places where you will go and create your own brand or your own profile in order to support your own career development. So that's what we're going to try and do today. So as I mentioned, this is part of LinkedIn Academy. We will have a session today, a session again in 2 weeks, and another session 2 weeks after that. And by the end of that, you'll be fully versed in all elements of LinkedIn. So today's session is very much about the basics. It's about getting you started. You may already have a LinkedIn account created, but you're not using it very much, or maybe you've never actually created an account. So this is the first part of the Academy, and we'll take you through the very, very, very basics. So what are we hoping to achieve today? Well, after I've introduced myself, this is my introduction on LinkedIn. This is who I am. This is my presence on LinkedIn social media. And those of you that connect with me will see that I've got quite detailed profile. But this is just my brand, as it were, on LinkedIn. You'll see that my main message is around being head of careers at the management school. You can see I've got 500 plus connections on LinkedIn. I think it's up to about 3,500 at this stage. My main 2 most recent qualifications I've put that, you can see they are picked up as LUMS and the Institute of Leadership and Management. And then you'll see at the bottom, open to work. Now I've turned that on to be able to explain to you. I don't always have it on. So basically open to, which you'll see the box there, that allows you to say what you're open to conversations about. So it could be about that you're recruiting, as sometimes I have it open that I'm actually recruiting, looking for new members of my team. Sometimes I would have it that I'm offering an additional service to people on LinkedIn, say if I was doing some private work. But the majority of people use it to find vacancies, and that's why you have this section called open to work. And I've just turned that on there. And what that means then is that recruiters are able to pick up when they search. So say for instance, another university was interested in the Director of Career Services. If a recruiter was doing an online search, my profile would pop up as a result, and they might want to have a look at my profile. As I say, I don't use it very often, but I just thought I'd turn it on for today. And we will talk a lot more about that in the next section of LinkedIn Academy. So the aims of today are to help you develop an online profile to complement your CV. So this is not to take the place of your CV, although lots of organizations will be recruiting using LinkedIn. They still rely on a CV. So this is a different mode, it's a different way of promoting yourself. And this is why we use LinkedIn. It's a complementing, as it were, what you'd already present on your CV. It's a very good tool for searching for organizations, for searching for people. It's really good for helping you to figure out whether a particular opportunity or a particular role might be best suited to you. So for instance, when students come to me for a one-to-one and they're talking to me about applying they're really interested in what a marketing, they want a role as a marketing executive. And I would say, well, do you really know what a marketing executive does? How would you know about what a marketing executive does? Well, a LinkedIn profile, searching LinkedIn for a marketing executive is a really good way of finding out what a marketing executive does. Particularly if they were an alumni of Lancaster University. So you will be able to see their background, their education, and then be able to see how their career was developing through the LinkedIn profile, while still getting a good understanding of the career path associated with being a marketing executive. It talks there about you can also find useful information about salaries. An interesting one I would always do if I was going for a job interview or if I was meeting a potential supporter of the school, I would certainly look them up on LinkedIn. Try and find out some background information about them. It might help our initial introductions or our initial conversation to go more smoothly if I've created that connection on LinkedIn. So often if I'm dealing with a recruiter from a large multinational company and perhaps their PA has connected us, I would go and arrange a meeting. I would go online and connect with them on LinkedIn and just say, looking forward to meeting you. It just creates that connection. And then, of course, it's about connecting professionally with fellow LinkedIn members. And I think that's the main aim of doing this, because it's not just about getting a job, it's also about helping your career development as well, and also learning more about what's going on in the sector that you're working in. And so this is why I think LinkedIn is a great tool for this. We have to start from the beginning, but once you get that, I think it's a great tool for keeping in touch with people who are working in similar roles to you or similar sectors. So you can see the millions of connections that are available to you through LinkedIn. It's fascinating and fabulous and a little bit daunting sometimes to know that those amount of people across the world that you could potentially connect with by sending one short message. And it's growing, so it's about two new LinkedIn members per second. So again, in terms of broadening your reach, broadening your scope, broadening your areas of knowledge, LinkedIn is an absolutely wonderful tool. So why use LinkedIn? Well, first of all, it's about creating your identity, your professional portfolio. So obviously you're studying at a leading university, a leading business school. You're now thinking about the next few years of your career. So what's the identity you want people to take for you? So what's the brand, if you like, that you're trying to portray as a professional? So just to think on a very, very simplistic basis, if you were thinking in terms of identity and in terms of roles, if you were going to be an investment banker or you were going to be a creative marketing person working for a bespoke marketing agency in London, you might have different online identities. You might want to put across a different persona. And so this is LinkedIn can help you to do that. I think it's also the best thing that I like about LinkedIn is that it helps you to connect with others. So you can connect with people who've studied at Lancaster or who've studied similar subjects to you. You can find people who might be able to share advice with you, and you can also be found. So you can be found by recruiters. So many people, when they set up their LinkedIn account in the university, myself and my colleagues will be one of the first people that they will find and connect with, and that's great. So the networking part is about connecting, finding, and being found as well. And then it's a fabulous trove of insights. So whatever your subject area, whatever your preferred professional area, your desired company you want to go and work in, whatever that might be, there's a huge amount of insights and research available on LinkedIn. So those are the kind of three elements to use LinkedIn. Some people will use them more than others for one or the other. My identity on LinkedIn tends to remain static. I've been doing the same role for about 5 years. I'm not looking to move to another role. I'm not looking to move to another city. So my professional identity is pretty static. I use it mainly, I would say, for networking. So that could be about sourcing speakers for some of the panel sessions that we offer. It could be because a student that I'm advising is wanting to work for a particular company, and they might come to me and say, Rory, all your connections, have you got anybody who's working with company X in a HR role that you could put me in touch with so I could have a chat with them? Or simply keeping in touch with my peers, other heads of career services, other people working in the career sector, both in the UK and around the globe. And then I use it a little bit for research. But I have other online tools that I tend to use for research. But so I would say, from my perspective, it's networking, and different people will engage with it in different ways, I would say. So you're at the stage where you've got your LinkedIn profile, or you're just creating a LinkedIn profile. You need to think about some different things. You need to think about why you're building a LinkedIn profile. And what is your pitch or your value proposition? So if you are using LinkedIn, as a lot of people said in the in the chat, so for instance, somebody said to develop some sort of record of strengths and achievements that can be easily presented to others. Really straightforward. Or it might be about applying for a job, or it could just be that you like the idea of having a LinkedIn account. So first of all, going back to the point I made, when you compare your use of LinkedIn to other social media, is first of all, you might want to think, well, who is your target audience? So if you're looking for vacancies, if you're looking to apply for work, or you're looking for a job, it's probably to recruiters. As I mentioned earlier on, I'm not looking for a new role, so my target audience is often to other people working in career services, as I said, in the UK and internationally. It might be that LinkedIn is people, you're working in an organization and you want to raise your profile within your own organization, and that might be your target audience. Everybody will be different, and it is a case of you figuring out what you'll use your profile, your membership of LinkedIn for. What is your long-term aim? And then you would think about the values associated with building up your LinkedIn profile. So how will you differentiate yourself from, so say for instance, you're studying economics, and how will you differentiate yourself from other people who are studying economics, both in Lancaster and across the UK, if you're thinking of promoting yourself to an employer? And similar point to that, like, what's your USP? What's your unique selling proposition? What's the thing that will make you stand out from the other economics students who are also online, also on LinkedIn, and also looking to apply for roles with you? And also there's a question about what are your key skills, your experiences, or the thing that you're kind of trying to sell. So some people will maybe start up businesses, would have invented a product, and they're looking to promote it, so they're trying to sell it through LinkedIn. But for the majority of people, it's thinking about, well, what are your key skills and experiences that you can promote to employers using LinkedIn? And of course, unlike your traditional CV, that doesn't simply have to be a list of your key skills or experiences, or indeed services or products, because LinkedIn allows you to use video, to use PDFs, to use spreadsheets, photos, videos, whatever it might be. And that's one of the advantages it has over the traditional CV, that it allows you to use all of those. The other thing you might want to think of, just in terms of developing your LinkedIn plan, is, are there any obstacles or factors in the way of achieving your goal? So for instance, if you want to go and work in France for L'Oreal, what obstacles might be in your way? So do you speak the language? Do you have the right to work there? Whatever they might be, because you need to think about them before a potential employer might think about them. Or if there's any apparent, again, I would stick any apparent obstacles. So for instance, if you were intending to try and go and work in France, for instance, you need to have pretty high up on your LinkedIn profile that you speak fluent French, for instance. So think about why you're building your LinkedIn profile, what you're hoping to achieve, and how you're going to present yourself. And as I said, you might be presenting yourself differently if you're interested in the marketing sector as opposed to investment banking. So the profiles attached, or sorry, the essentials attached to your profile would be, think about how your first impressions count. So these are two former students from LUMS. You can see they've got very, very good headshots. Really, really important that it's a professional headshot that you have on your LinkedIn profile, not a holiday snapshot, not something you've taken in a college bar one night. Make sure it's the professional image that you want to give across. Just to highlight, as part of that, the Photography Society are doing headshots, professional headshots in the hub this afternoon. And for a very, very small fee of £1, you can go along and get a really professional headshot done by the Photographic Society. And that would be perfect for using on LinkedIn. So again, what was the key identity that they wanted to get across? So James, it was that he was president of Lewis, and Chioma's was that she was a final year marketing management student at Lancaster. Again, they both put down where they were and where they were interested, and they both had the location. So again, United Kingdom was the critical one. Just let people know exactly where you are and available to work. One of the really interesting things you can do from LinkedIn is you can create your own LinkedIn URL. So I will share my one afterwards, but it's basically www.linkedin.com. It's Rory Daly careers, but you could do it to whatever suits you, and that could be your link that you can share with other people. And it's a really useful way of connecting with people and directing people to your LinkedIn profile. But remember, first and foremost, that it is social media, so you need to feel comfortable. So putting things up online, you should only do so if you're comfortable in doing it. Not everybody is comfortable promoting themselves online, and that's absolutely fine. This is one way of promoting yourself, but it's not the only way. So please do remember only to post things that you're comfortable about, or making sure that the identity you're portraying is the one you're comfortable with. So taking James's in slightly more detail, and I've kind of we've rearranged that slightly in a cut and paste. It doesn't look quite like this on the website. But you'll see as a profile photo, the professional photo, much more likely to get viewed in detail if you've got a professional photo. He's got his key identity there. He's got his location. But now we need to start talking about his summary. So again, your skills, your experience, your goals, the media you use, etc. This is actually not James's about. This is somebody else's. We just put in there just from one of my colleagues. And you can see that just gives a snapshot of what people are about. It's not your full detail. It's much more akin to the profile on your CV, if you like, or the career objective on your CV, than it is a detailed story. You'll see there's plenty of other space on your LinkedIn profile on your LinkedIn page to be able to put in much more detail about your education, etc. So it's a really nice way of just introducing yourself to people, and again thinking about what might be picked up in search engines. So again, the type of roles that you're interested in, what you're about, what you want to do, and what you want to achieve through using LinkedIn. So thinking then about your LinkedIn profile, I think it's really important that you build the profile before you start networking, creating content, or applying for jobs. I think those of us that use LinkedIn a lot, there's nothing more frustrating than somebody sending you a request for a connection on LinkedIn. And if you don't recognize the name, I'd always go and check them out before I'd say yes. And you go and check, and they've just got nothing there. They've just got not even a picture. They just say they're a student at Lancaster University, and that's it. Most of those cases, I wouldn't accept the invitation to connect from those people. I think it's much better to create your profile, have it looking professional, and then when you do start to connect with people, you're sending out a much more professional image, a much more professional idea. So make sure you do your work before you start to connect, even though you might be tempted to send it out before you're quite ready. I think it's really important that you just take your time and do it when it's ready. So moving on to our next slide, you then start to think in the same way as you think about your CV, you start to think about your experience. So again, this is another one of my colleagues who's worked, who's been a student at the university and has also worked at the university in the past. And you can see there, so you're talking about your work experience. So again, a really helpful summary. Again, like your CV, you put the most, your education, in your education section, you put your most recent one, usually just your bachelor's degree. Unless there was something very, very interesting about your A-levels, you wouldn't put too much information about them, or your high school qualifications. Would really just focus on your university degree. Think about the message that your work experience is giving across. So again, in the same way as we'd use our CV, we think about what message that's giving across. So think again about how you describe your activities, how you, in the same way as you are when you're creating a CV, you think about, well, how do I best present my work in a shop in terms of customer service, in terms of client management, and it can be done. But you need to think about the recruiters that are going to look at your experience. So make sure that you're presenting in a way that will be of interest to them. A really nice way of getting some connections and increasing your network on LinkedIn is through the use of skills and endorsements. So endorsements are where you have actually outlined the skills that you think you have, and then somebody else that you're connected on LinkedIn would come along and say, oh, Rory says he's really good at communication skills. I'd like to endorse that. I worked with Rory on a project and he was a really good communicator. So again, it's a way of building your network and a way of getting almost like referees. And I'll come on to that in a couple of minutes. It's almost like referees on your CV. It's somebody who's kind of vouching for what you've actually said on your LinkedIn profile. So thinking about the about section, so you need to think, who are you? So what is the thing that's going to attract a recruiter? And I go back to, you know, if you're studying economics and you're applying for a role and you think there's going to be lots of other economics students both in LUMS and across the UK going to apply for the role, what's going to make you stand out? So your about section is, as I said, it's what your skills and experience, but also what are you interested in and what are your goals? So again, like your career objectives or your career aim section on your CV, it's about what are you hoping to achieve. So give the employer some idea of what you're hoping to achieve with the initial stages of your early career. Because obviously, as we keep on mentioning, this is just about the early stages of your career. We're not planning for the next 20 years. It's really only for the next few years. So once you've kind of thought that through, you're pretty clear about who you are, what you're interested in, and what your skills and experience are. You need then to think about how you describe yourself. So these are some examples of how people have gone on and done that on the chat. So how exactly they've described themselves. So you can see the first one, BSc Hons in Accounting and Finance. They're explicitly looking for a graduate role within an audit or financial firm, coupled with visa sponsorship. The second one, the green, someone who's very active in women in finance. And again, that's a good hook for potential employers. So it's good to have things like that in your your profile. And again, they're looking for inside opportunities to further their development. So again, not looking for a graduate role necessarily, looking for ways just to further their development. So that could be an insight week, could be a summer internship, could be just connecting with somebody senior in an organization. And then the third one is definitely a placement student. And again, very clearly what they're looking for and very clear with what sector they're looking for their year. So these are some different ways that you can have to present yourself as part of your summary. There's no right and wrong answer to this. Again, it's entirely up to you and what you hope to achieve from LinkedIn. It's good to be absolutely clear to employers. It's good to be businesslike. It's good to be mentioning what you're doing right now. But after that, it's really about what you're hoping to achieve through using LinkedIn. So just thinking about it for 1 minute, I'd be really grateful if a couple of people could post in the chat. Just try and write that, something similar that would describe yourself that you would post into your LinkedIn profile. So just take a minute. I'd be really grateful if you could type it into the chat, if you're happy enough to do it, just so we could see the profile of some of the people that are on the conversation here today. I'll just give you a minute to do that. I'll carry on, but while we're doing that, just really good if you could post it into your chat. Because as I said, your summary is your pitch. It's how you're promoting yourself to the employers, and it's your marketing. So it's your branding, your marketing. We will help you to make sure it's as professional as possible, but the content is really yours because it's about how you want to present yourself. Okay, so take your time. I'll carry on, but it'd be great if a couple of people could just post into the chat and we could come back to it afterwards. So I mentioned about the skills, and the skills is a really interesting way that you can, again, appear in search engines with, but you can choose up to 50 skills that you want to suggest to employers that you possess. The question though is, how do you choose the right skills for LinkedIn? And again, you might want to think about the role that you're applying to. So what skills are needed in that dream role that you're applying to? And I mentioned earlier on that LinkedIn is a really good way of finding out more about a particular role and finding out what's needed from a particular role. You know, as I mentioned earlier on, if you're interested in a role as a HR partner, go find people on LinkedIn who are HR partners, look at their profile, look at their experience, maybe look at the skills that they highlight, and that would give you a really good insight into the skills that you would need to develop your profile in order to achieve that dream role. So thinking about those skills, they could possibly become into kind of different categories. So if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, we're talking more about IT skills. whether it's the use of Python, whether it's use of pivot tables, whether it's use of Google Analytics, whatever it might be, these are skills that are really, really important in the workplace. So think about what skills you want to get across. So for instance, Microsoft Office, we're very blasé about that, but because we use mostly Microsoft Word, Outlook, PowerPoint. But that's important that employers can see that you've got those skills. The ones in the middle are from teamwork, organization, tenacity, project management. They're more specialist skills, but they're the skills that are probably the hardest to demonstrate. So the majority of students, if they talk about teamwork, they talk about being involved in a student project. It's important, but it's not very, very exciting for a recruiter. So you need to think about some really good examples to display those skills. Whereas if you take something like Python, you could just say, I've got this qualification, and then people will know that you are actually good at that. But the ones in the middle are kind of a little bit more specialist and require a little bit more work in terms of how you would evidence them. And again, the finance related skills around data analysis, budgeting and forecasting, again, really important skills if you're applying into that area, but how do you demonstrate them? And similarly, another batch, if you like, of negotiation skills, sales, relationship management, client presentation. So these are the skills that are important that you're trying to demonstrate. In the same way as we'd encourage you to demonstrate your skills across your CV, we'd encourage you to demonstrate your skills across your LinkedIn profile. So thank you to those people who've just posted in the chat. Some really interesting descriptions there. Really interesting point there from about the family business from Esishan. Really interesting story there about Diwali. Yeah, really good points about different aspects of business administration. List of soft skills wouldn't necessarily be in the summary. You'd more about talking about more giving a description rather than just a list of skills. But I showed you there on the skills and endorsement section where you could actually include those skills and then get endorsements for them from other people on LinkedIn for possessing those skills. Very nice one there from is Victoria. I'm currently studying biology with psychology at Lancaster University. Previous volunteering allowed me to gain skills in consultancy and building great rapport. Placement year linked to nutrition or general scientific research is desirable. Very nice, very brief, tells you a little bit about you and what you're looking for. And again, another nice one there from Morgan. I'm a first year economics student involved in Lewis. Recently gained a place as an analyst on the Gossel Fund. Started a company and has some experience of investment banking at ING and through Forage. Build a foundation in financial career. That's really good. So some really good examples there of the type of profiles that you need to be getting across. Again, being very clear, like say Victoria, why am I on here? I'm interested in a placement year. That's what I'm keenest about. So make it easy for the employer to figure out what you're about. Don't have them work for it. So thank you for those people who shared. Thank you, Hussein, for the list of soft skills. Yeah, some really interesting points there, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for that. So I mentioned about the recommendations earlier on, and this is one of the best ways that you can do it. So again, from one of my colleagues, this is their own personal recommendations. You can see that it's similar to the references section on a traditional CV, which I mentioned. You know, from one of my colleagues for a student recruitment officer at PwC. Since working at PwC and in my previous role, I've had the pleasure of working with my colleague, who is a professional, committed colleague who's always willing to help and support where he can. He has a clear passion for working with employers and is always willing for PwC, I know that finishes, to succeed. So it's really important that you get connections to give you recommendations. Ideally, your recommendations would be people who've, if you're applying for graduate jobs, it might be people who've got a little bit more experience than you, because actually it's more of a, at this stage, it's more of a reference than it would be if it was just one of your fellow students. Obviously, if they worked with you, that's fine. But ideally, it'd be somebody that had been more senior than you in the workplace, at least until you've had a couple of years work experience. Again, like everything else, aim for quality, not quantity. And remember as well to pay back the favour. So if people give you recommendations, don't forget to give others recommendations too. So remember, just to sum up, your first impressions count. You should update regularly. So like we would say with your CV, it's often difficult to remember all the things you've done in the last 2 years. And it's also a way of refreshing your LinkedIn profile regularly, is by putting on details of an event that you took part in, an event that you organized. Maybe you had a little bit of work experience, new work experience, whatever it might be. It's really nice to see a LinkedIn profile refreshed. It also builds on your network, and you'll get some likes and comments on it as well, and you'll hear from people on your network. It's really important to remember that it's not just for people with lots of experience. Everyone has to start somewhere. Focus on your key skills, your experiences, your passions, your interests, but most of all, talk about your goals. So what is it that you hope to achieve from doing this work, basically? Why are you on LinkedIn? What are you hoping to achieve? There's a danger sometimes that students confuse LinkedIn with other forms of social media where you can post almost anything. If you're trying to create a particular persona, a particular profile on LinkedIn, keep it succinct and relevant. So if you're using LinkedIn because you're keen to get a graduate job in fast-moving consumer goods, well, keep your LinkedIn profile relevant either to the sector, to companies in the sector, to your experience in the sector, to news stories in the sector, or what you hope to achieve in the sector. There's no point in talking about too much about personal concerns, personal interests, etc. That can be important, but sometimes you see that people's LinkedIn profiles are taken over completely by posts that might be more suitable to Facebook or to Instagram. And you might want to think, well, actually, are they confusing their brand? Are they confusing their message? You can also add a call to action. So we talked there about some of the people who kindly posted in the chat, mentioned about what they're looking for from using LinkedIn, but it might not be a job. So, for instance, I might post that I'm looking for somebody to advise one of our students who wants to go and work in cybersecurity, for instance. And I would put out a call to action on my LinkedIn, just saying, hi, everyone, met a really interesting student. They're interested in a particular career in cybersecurity. Can any of my network help? And I usually get 4 or 5 people who get back in touch with me and offer some help like that. So you can, if the more of a call to action you have, the more people are likely to respond. So yes, it's great to post about events and things, and I do that quite regularly as well. But people just tend to like that. They don't tend to comment as much. Whereas if you put out a question, or you put out a survey, or you put out a story about a particular issue, people are much more likely to engage. So just before I finish, so once you join LinkedIn, you'll regularly get requests to upgrade to LinkedIn Premium. There's absolutely no need for the vast majority of people to do that. You should take up the 1 month free trial. It's always a free trial where you have to put in your bank card details, your credit card details, and then they give you the 1 month free trial, and then you have to remember to cancel at the end of the month. But they're quite good at sending you regular reminders that it is coming to an end, you can cancel. But you might want to hold off the 1 month, using the 1 month free trial until you're applying for jobs, applying for roles, because it can be helpful. You can get some insight into who else is applying for jobs on LinkedIn. You can also contact people who aren't necessarily already connections of yours if you've got the paid membership. So I would say, as the slide says, use this strategically. And by that, we would mean hold on till you're definitely in the throes of applying for jobs, and then use it. But for the vast majority of time, there's no need. I think I've paid in 10 years of really using LinkedIn, I've probably paid for about 3 months of LinkedIn. It just suited me at particular times. And I get on fine with LinkedIn. So there's no need for the vast majority of people to pay. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll come on to LinkedIn Academy 2. That will be helping you to develop your profile in more depth. It'll also be helping you how to connect appropriately, and we'll also look at it from the point of view of recruiters. So we'll turn it around a little bit. So rather than the point of view of you using your LinkedIn profile, we'll look at it from a recruiter's point of view, see what they see when they're using LinkedIn Recruiter, and how you can then best match up with your profile in order to make sure you get those opportunities, or maybe get connections with those recruiters. So we've got another couple of minutes before we finish up. If anybody has any questions, I'll stop sharing the screen for now. And if anybody has any questions, they want to put their hand up or just to post something in the chat, then please do so. So Victoria's got a chat there that says, would you recommend that we make a LinkedIn profile now or wait till after the academy? I think you could make a start. It's always good to get going with it. We've given you enough there to make a start. What I would suggest is that you don't then, so you could sort out your photograph, you could sort out your background, you could sort out your profile, you could the key facts on the start. You could start to put in some information about the skills, but then you could hold off connecting with other people until we've had the next section on the academy. So I would certainly make a start, Victoria and everybody else, but make sure, you may feel that you're comfortable enough, either having listened to me today and had a look at other profiles, that you're happy enough to connect. But I would usually just make a start and then wait till after the next session before you start connecting with people. Do you have any tips as to what would be the most appropriate background? Again, Morgan, it could be about what image you're trying to portray as well. So if you think back to James's profile that I showed you there earlier on, James was very heavily involved in investment banking, had work experience in the city, and was determined to go back to Canary Wharf to work. So I think his background profile picture was the City of London at night. Again, as long as it can be something relevant. My one is the background picture is an old map of Lancashire, a medieval map of Lancashire. I just found it one day and I thought it was appropriate. Some people would have a picture of the university in the background, some members of staff would, but I think as long as it's professional, looks nice, is not your favorite football team or your favorite band or whatever, I think it's absolutely fine. Just something nice. Jessica, you can put down my name on the My Lancaster Award checklist. That's absolutely fine. So Jack asked, how should I approach describing my responsibilities and work in each part of my experience? Should I put it in the about section or the details? I see what you mean. So when you're looking at the full page, obviously we didn't look at the full page today. Your profile would just really be a summary of your experience and who you are, and then put most of the detail in the work within the experience section. That's a really good question, Jack. So yeah, the profile bit, the about section is really just a paragraph. The rest of it then can go under the experience section. Trish asks, what are the chances that recruiters will approach you regarding internships, etc.? Usually it's more likely towards graduate jobs and more experienced hires. However, for particular sectors, they might be looking for. So I mentioned about the skills section earlier on. So say recruiters might be looking to offer a summer internship, but they're absolutely keen that everybody who applies must have leadership experience and use of Python. So they could do some searches based on that. If they were looking for very, very targeted internships, Chris, but usually for more experienced roles. Okay, I can't see any more hands up and I can't see any more questions in the chat. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming along today. Thank you for how well you've engaged with the session. Thank you for everybody who's posted in the chat, either the short summaries or asked questions. You'll see the booking is open on Careers Connect for our next session in 2 weeks' time, and I look forward to you all being able to attend. So thank you very much, everybody. Take care. Have a good rest of the week. Bye-bye.